What's going on out there? Welcome to the Alamo Audible Podcast. I'm your host, Jared Kalmus, joined, as always, by my fearless co-host, Adrian Bermudez. And we're here to do a non-football podcast for the first time in a while. It feels good. It feels refreshing. Yeah. I'm not dreading it, like usual.
A breath of fresh air indeed, Jared. And I don't know how much fresh air this basketball team is going to provide us, but for right now, after what we've endured throughout the football season, it is indeed very, very nice to be able to change lanes and switch our perspective over to the hardwood, to the historic convo.
Yep. I had to bust out, if you're watching this on YouTube, I had to bust out my UTSA basketball Nike polo. Okay? So you know this is real old. So don't come to me talking about, true fan this, real fan this. If you don't have any Nike UTSA apparel, I don't want to hear it. Adrian asked me when I got this. And I said, first off, it could be new, right? I could have the exclusive hookup with the new UTSA Nike gear. But no, I got this in high school in 2009. All right.
Oh, man. And you were already committed. You'd already announced your commitment to UTSA at this point?
Yeah, my athletic commitment was locked in stone. Yeah, after my first tour of campus. Yeah. And my buddy had gotten admitted, and he was all gung-ho about going to UTSA. And then his Aggie dad was like, well, I'll only pay for you to go to A&M. So he went and did his year at Blinn or whatever and got an A&M. So I got the shirt for free. Yeah. So as we do this basketball preview, while I may not know these players and these coaches very well because they're all new, I've had a lifetime of experience watching UTSA basketball. So
2009, that shirt is officially on its quinceañera year. It is pretty impressive.
Crazy.
Nike UTSA apparel prior to next year is quadruple Roadrunner OG certified. Absolutely. You, sir, are the top rank. That is incredible. What a phenomenal piece of apparel that is. It's gorgeous.
I can't believe I've been a UTSA fan for 15 years. That's so crazy, man.
Does it feel longer or does it feel shorter?
Shorter, for sure.
All right. There's a fair question. This year, sometimes it can drag on in years like this.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into, previewing the Roadrunners this year with their season about to tip off, I think Trinity is their first game. Probably good to talk because we didn't talk about it on the football episode this past week, but big news at UTSA recently. They, the rumors were true. They're going to Nike via a third party named Game One. And I was asking Adrian before we started recording, I feel like it's going to have a bigger recruiting impact for basketball than it will for football.
Yeah, I certainly think so. The merch for basketball, having the Nike check on it, it's the top echelon, right, of basketball gear. And I think basketball players get to enjoy their apparel swag a lot more than a football player does. You get to have the sweats on the bench, you get to put on the shorts and the jersey on the court. You're always getting to be decked out at all times. Whereas football, you got to check on the jersey and that's cool. And maybe you got to check on the pants and that's cool. But us sitting up in the rafters in the Alamo Dome, we're not going to go buy the Nike UTSA football pants. But we might want to go buy those Nike Roadrunners basketball shorts. Absolutely. If those things can get into the bookstore. So yeah, I think it's pretty exciting. And I don't know if any college recruit will pick a school over another one because their vendor is Nike. But I do think it makes schools sexier for a high school recruit. Absolutely, man. Austin Claunch gets to walk into your living room with that Nike check and, get you all decked out in your free merch swag bag. Yeah, pretty cool when it's got the check on it. Checks over stripes.
For me, it all comes down to the footwear, man. I mean, when it comes to basketball shoes, Nike's the king, right? Adidas has really never been seen as a basketball shoe. To my understanding, I know when I was in school and I was buddies with some guys on the team, they were always complaining about having to wear Adidas, how much they hated Adidas shoes and all that. They would literally give them away for free. I mean, I'm tall enough that I could it's got humble brag, but I'm tall enough that I could wear some hand-me-down shoes from basketball players that are on the roster. So I was getting free shoes because they didn't want them. I feel like that wouldn't have happened if they were at Nike school. The guys would want to keep
It's
those.
not
I'm not
basketball
a
isn't what you
sneakerhead, but
think. Basketball is not what comes to mind when you hear Adidas, right? It's more lifestyle, casual
yeah,
wear, lifestyle wear,
yeah,
maybe
sneakers,
running
running
wear,
shoes.
right?
Yep.
But when you think of Nike, when you see the check, when you see Just Do It, it is synonymous with basketball.
Mm-hmm.
100%. Yeah,
Yep.
that's a good point,
So
Jared.
we'll get 1 year of Adidas, under Claunch, but I think like that's probably one of those things that made define the Claunch era. Is like when we went back to Nike, after 15 years, it is a big change. And while the apparel may be changing, the whole roster has changed, the coaching staff has changed, all of that. The convo hasn't changed. The convo is still the convo, baby. Story, if you will. But I also think the style of play for the Roadrunners probably won't change that much compared to what we saw under Steve Henson, right? Based off what we heard from Claunch, the recruiting moves that they've made, what we saw in the scrimmage against USC, they're going to play a very fast, up-tempo, aggressive
Mm-hmm.
style of offense. Not afraid to shoot early in the shot clock. Not afraid to shoot threes liberally, but hopefully with a little bit more defensive intensity and a little bit more presence in the paint than Henson's teams played with.
Yeah, and I know that could kind of sound alarming or scary to UTSA fan from
Yeah.
what we've had to endure as far as basketball product over the last couple of seasons. But it's definitely what Claunch has sort of emphasized. He wants fast. He wants to be able to shoot a lot of threes, but he also wants to take a lot of high efficiency shots. He also talks about, spending that year in Alabama last year whenever he left Nicholls State and talking about how much he was just able to digest, process, and learn about playing fast, up tempo, quicker, knowing spacing, knowing tempo. And so he's a student of that school, right? Of fast up tempo basketball. And so it's also just the way that the game works now, Jared. Like,
Mm-hmm.
is there an NBA team or a collegiate team that does not play up-tempo basketball in 2024? No, I don't think so. Like,
Well, I don't know. I think some of the teams that have made some of these Elite Eight runs have been a little bit more methodical and have tried to be, efficiency over volume and have put an
sure.
emphasis on defense, right? So I wouldn't say that that's like an across the board guarantee at the collegiate level the way that it has been in the NBA recently. But I think like across the board, like yeah, most teams are playing at a pretty quick pace
On
and they're launching
average,
that thing from three.
on
Yep.
average, teams are
Yep.
playing faster and quicker. And also I just think it's just sort of like what players are more so gravitating
Yeah.
towards as well.
Yeah.
Like, you need to have a very mature team to be able to slow down the basketball
Yeah,
and to
and
play
you
more
have
for
to be able
efficiency and work
to
it
keep
around
players, long enough to build
and
that, and that's really
pass the
hard,
ball,
really hard.
pass a good shot for a great shot, the Popovich way,
Mm-hmm.
the San Antonio way, Jared. But yeah, it's becoming more and more antiquated as the years go on, and particularly a basketball traditionalist, I am not a fan of it. I
Mm-hmm.
despise heavy three volume basketball. Is the worst thing I ever had to endure as a Houston Rockets fan was watching James Harden command this team.
Every time we do a basketball episode, you got to bring James Harden into it.
And I just, Jared, it's just hard for me to get used to that style of play. But when you have the right pieces in place, it can be done.
Yeah,
Are the right
yeah,
pieces in
and
place? We'll have to see.
maybe not. The only reason I push back on you a little bit about the whole like methodical, or sorry, kind of slower pace, defensive minded style of play, is not to say that like half the country is doing that or it's super common, but rather to acknowledge that like UTSA could have chosen to go in a very different direction just to change what they were doing under Henson.
Right.
Um, and I don't think that's always a good move, right? I mean, I think talent and effective coaching and stuff like that probably matters more than the style of play, right? You see it a lot on the
Definitely.
football side of like, I'll give an example like Texas Tech, right? They bring in Matt Wells, who's a little bit more of a defensive-minded football coach. They really struggle. They're losing games, and the fans are pissed because they're used to scoring 50 points a game under Mike Leach, right? Like that's what they
Yeah.
want their team to look like. Um, so I think sometimes like the AD feels like they have to change the style of play to show the fans that they're making a change. But sometimes that's not going to give you the results that you want. And sometimes having a consistent style of play as a program, even if it's under a different coach and different regime and all that, is still beneficial too. So yeah, we'll see.
Definitely so.
I think
I
we
think
say
that's
that
a
now,
solid
but
point.
when we get into January and like maybe there's a bad record for the team and we're sitting there watching bad threes hit the side of the rim 10 possessions in a row, we maybe taking our tune back on that.
Yeah.
But I think it's all in the execution and not so much the style.
Well, and I think you made a really good point too about you have to keep players around in order to be able to build that chemistry to be able
Mm-hmm.
to slow it down and be more methodical. And in the today's day and age and transfer portal and trying to field teams and get them on court and get them gelled up together, I mean, probably the best thing to do is go, and let's get this thing moving.
Yep.
Jared, I think it's important that we sort of briefly reintroduce Austin Claunch here to the fan base. Yes, UTSA did hire a new basketball coach this year. You may or may not be familiar with him, but Austin Claunch came over to UTSA back in March. He was spent 1 year at Alabama. Jared and I kind of refer to it as a layover year. We like to think that the handshake deal was already done prior to him leaving Nichols State, where he was at, and he won back-to-back conference titles as a head coach. And then, spent that one season as an assistant coach at Alabama.
Yeah, and I will say Claunch was on our short list for candidates at UTSA. Ended up being the guy. It was good. That's a good feeling.
Beautiful.
So Claunch had a great run at Alabama. They got to the Final Four, I think it was, right?
Yes.
Yep.
They did.
And that's great, but I think what really got on the radar was just his ability to win in his 5 seasons at Nichols. I mean, I think most listeners of this podcast are well aware. There's some old farts like me that have been around since the Southland days when UTSA was at that level, which really feels like a lifetime ago. They are one of the lowest funded schools in Division One. One of the few schools that you can say has worse facilities than UTSA. They don't have much going for them. I mean, not a lot of resources there, not a lot of basketball culture or history or tradition. And Claunch found a way to make it work, right? He got those guys bought in. He brought a lot of energy, got some really good players, and he put that program on the map, right? They became competitive, really, really quickly under his direction. I think his first year there, they were projected to finish 11th in the Southland Conference, which puts you squarely in probably the bottom 20 schools in the country. And he won 21 games there, right? So pretty instant impact. And, I don't know how he built the roster there, when he was at Nichols, but, nonetheless, I think obviously he elevated the talent that was there and found a way to get guys that they couldn't get before, which has me really excited for what he can do at UTSA in a place that faces a lot of the similar constraints as Nichols, non-existent facilities right now. Hopefully they're going to break ground on race 2.0 for basketball in January, I think is the latest update I heard on that. But, other than that, man, I mean, we've got more than Nichols got, but compared to our peers in our current conference, we're the Nichols of this conference right now.
Right, sure, yeah. But unlike whenever Claunch was at Nichols, he at least has a dream to sell recruits here that, hey, look, shovels are going to get in the dirt. They're building this thing. It's coming. Get over here now and build it with us, right? That sort of fun old adage that we've always used to recruit people at UTSA across all of our sports. A 600 winning percentage overall at Nichols State. Austin Claunch goes 90-61. And 58-28 in the Southland Conference. Really salty stuff. Back-to-back conference titles. in 2021 and in 2022. Also, one thing that I love about Austin Claunch, and I think maybe one of his best intangible attributes, is that he is from Houston, Texas. He went to Strake Jesuit. He was on the private school sector here, but of course, you play basketball in Houston, Texas. You play on the select circuit. And so he is connected with the city of Houston's basketball, youth basketball, high school basketball circuit. And that is the most potent bed of basketball talent in the state, one of the most potent in the country. And that is absolutely massive for UTSA, for Austin Claunch to be able to have some pull in the greater Houston area with those head coaches, with those select teams, with those programs, and being able to get a little bit of influence to get some guys over here.
Mm-hmm. Yep, absolutely. And another cool story about Claunch too is because he's from Houston, he does have familiarity with UTSA as a basketball program, right? I don't remember the exact details of the story, but he knew Brooks Thompson. I think Brooks may have recruited him when he was at a high school level, and I think he said, I wasn't going to play even at UTSA, but I always felt like respected by Brooks and all that, and he's kind of shared his story and his connection when he was first introduced to UTSA, and that was really cool. I think Seipei was like his main connection to UTSA. I think they were boys or something like that. I don't know, but it was pretty cool to see that like he knew a bit about the history of the program, which caught me off guard when he came in. To be honest with you, like I never really imagined that UTSA's first basketball coach, when we joined the American, would know anything about the history of this program, because there's not a lot to know, to be fair,
Sure,
especially in
yeah.
recent history. So that was a cool little nugget, man. I really enjoyed that. And he claims that he's had his eye on this job for a long time. So whether that's coach speak or not, I still appreciate it nonetheless, because it's not the same job that football is, right? It's definitely a lot more of an uphill battle. I think the UTSA football job at this point is probably always going to be consistently seen as one of the better jobs in the group of five, but basketball's not at that level for sure.
And then he played alongside or played against someone that used to play at UTSA, like back whenever they were on the high school circuit. Gosh, the name escapes me, but I remember it coming out whenever.
Was it Devin?
He was, I think it was Devin, man. I'm pretty sure he played against or played alongside Devin whenever he was on the circuit here
I
in
think
H-Town,
so.
something like that.
I
Yeah.
think so.
Can't remember the exact story. I wish I had it in front of me. But Austin Claunch, yes, our new head coach. And he brings an entire staff with him as well, Jared. And so it's not just a new head coach, right? But of course, along with the new head coach, you hire an entire staff with you. And so alongside Austin Claunch is Nick Bowman, Joey Brooks, Trevor DeLoach, Joseph Jones, and Robbie Benavides, all joining Austin Claunch here. Jared, do we want to get into our roster and start working our way through the names that we have here before we start looking at the schedule?
Yeah, I think so. We could probably, just say a little bit about kind of the preseason for them, right? I think we mentioned that they had that scrimmage against USC. They also had a secret scrimmage against McNeese.
Yes. Yeah. And Austin Claunch said in the 80 minutes of basketball that they have played thus far, they played good basketball for 50 to 55 of those minutes. So we were good for a lot of it. So I take that as he liked what he saw in terms of development, in terms of guys like playing cohesively with each other, the synchronicity of moving the ball as sort of one unit. And he mentioned that the team got better as the game went on, and he was particularly more fond of how he played in second halves than we played in first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the McNeese scrimmage was a secret scrimmage, right? So there's no official stats for it or broadcast or anything like that. But those final scores always leak on Twitter, and Trilly Donovan is like the college basketball insider on Twitter, and he had UTSA losing that one by 3 points, and he may be like, "Oh, McNeese State, that's a Southland school, like that's bad that we lost by 3." No, that's a really good result. McNeese is really good. Will Wade is their head coach, who was the head coach at LSU before he had some NCAA violations for stuff that, by the way, is completely legal now. Free my mans. But McNeese is a really, really good program, right? So if if that's a real game and UTSA is good enough to hang within a single possession of McNeese State, I'm going to feel pretty good about this year being an entertaining one and one to build upon.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah, and I actually watched that whole USC scrimmage. I paid the $18 of whatever it was to stream one game of USC.
Go.
Which
Pay-per-view
I feel like
preseason.
Yeah. It really brought me back to my roots as a UTSA fan since 2009 of paying some shady website that's like hyperlinked on the school website, $20 to stream like a 2-camera broadcast in 480p. We're so back, baby.
Oh man!
But no, I was just really curious. I wouldn't be better prepared for this podcast. I knew it was going to come one day, and so I feel like an sense of obligation. And let's be honest, Adrian, I had a prepaid Visa gift card from jury duty, and I didn't know what the hell else to use it on. And I knew that if they wanted to charge me again for a subscription, it would just get declined, right? So that's the real reason why.
Money well spent.
yeah. And my impression on that is, it was a team that I thought played really hard. I thought they showed a lot of effort. They're not there. Definitely not. They're not ready to, go beat any AAC upper crust team on the road right now from what I saw. But you could see a team that was very athletic, that had some good shooters, that was not afraid to rebound the basketball, that made an effort to rebound the basketball, and that closed out on defense, right? And sure, they got beat. They're playing USC. I didn't think USC was that good either, by the way. I was kind of surprised by that. Maybe they're really emptying the bench in a scrimmage. I don't know. But yeah, I thought the ball movement was nice and crisp. There weren't many times that I felt like they shot a contested shot when a better shot was open on the court, which was good. But, to go back to the Steve Henson comment, though, there were a lot of times where they did take that open three early in the shot clock and bricked it.
Yeah.
And it's like, if you would have drove and then maybe kick, maybe it gets you a better look.
It worked to play a little bit, disappointing.
Yeah. But, I thought overall, I was like, you know what? Like, you could tell in just the hustle that it's a different team than what Steve Henson out there had out there in the last years. And they're not a really, really big team as far as like size and length and all that. But I did like what they have from the guards. Like they both have some of that same dynamic playmaking ability, but they're 6'3" instead of 5'11" or 6'1", like we've traditionally seen from UTSA's point guards and shooting guards. So that was good.
Yeah, and when I look at sort of the box score from the USC game, the thing that sticks out to me are the guys that got the most minutes. So you can kind of sort of see who's separating themselves as the starters.
Yeah.
In that first rotation. Field goal percentage could be a little bit better. Like you said, Jared, a lot of those are just coming down court and throwing one up early in the shot clock.
Yeah, they missed some looks to the basket too. That I feel like a lot of that was because of USC size.
I think one of the ugly concerns though is Harley going 50% at the line, 53% on your free throws. You want to see that get cleaned up a little bit. Threw up 29 threes on the night. That's actually like not an insanely egregious amount. Like it is a lot, but you see 40 point. You see 43 attempts pretty regularly too. But yeah, field goal percentage, got some work to do there. Free throw percentage, that's got to be a little bit tighter. But yeah, looking at the minutes that guys got is really where I'm starting to get excited to sort of see who's going to be the starting five.
Yep. So before we start going through the roster and the starting five and all that, do want to take a quick moment to recognize our Patreon supporters. If you're listening to this before Halloween, or probably on Halloween, that means that you are a Patreon subscriber because we're doing an early release for this episode. So this is going to be our bonus episode on Patreon this week. and we'll release it to Gen Pop next week as the season kicks off. Or tips off. I'm still mostly in football mode here. But thank you guys all so much for the support. That includes our Board of Trustees members, Digiteek, John Otwell, and shout out to John. John made a Los Correcaminos pumpkin for Halloween, and it looks so good.
Yeah.
That was awesome. That really, really made my week.
Unbelievably well done. Yeah.
Yeah. I had no idea he was such an artist, man. That's awesome. And I should have known because I know that he used to do custom cabinets, so he's got the the angle and carving and all that, the ornate finishing.
That nice delicate touch of the hand, dude. I mean, pumpkin carving is no easy task, my friend.
No joke. Yeah. All right, well, shout out as well to Gary and Ruben representing the UTSA Bird Gang Tailgate, Ray Redding and Mimi Apparel, Brandon Grill and the Grail Realty Group, Andy Elizada and Proficient Benefit Solutions, Ian McClendon and Seeker LLC, Javon Townsend, the president of the DFW chapter of the UTSA Alumni Association, Ryan Squares, Waterman Construction, UTSA Annual Giving, Artisan Vapor and CBD, Wayne Gonzalez and the Runners Rising Project, and of course, our big money donors as well, which include Bento Bar, the Bunch Family, Zach Espericueta and the San Antonio Podcast Network, Alejandro Benavides, Dan Nerdall, host of Around the Bird Bath. By the way, speaking of Around the Bird Bath, Dan's got a big guest spot lined up very soon. Stay tuned.
Very big. Very big. Very big.
Shout out to Jacob Cavazos, board president for the UTSA Alumni Association, John Nally, Rick Cortez of Rowdy Road Grillers, Sumner McDaniel, UTSA King Bowser, Maddie, and Homefield Apparel, where you can use discount code UTSA1 Homefield to get 15% off your first order. If you've not shopped at Homefield, the temperature outside is dropping. They got some really nice hoodies, very comfy. Check it out. They make great gifts as well.
And the UTSA hoodie is basketball specific with vintage Rowdy dribbling the rock. No better time to go make your very first home field purchase and save 15% on that hoodie to wear into the historic convo to welcome Austin Claunch era. Yes.
Damn, that's good.
Yes.
That's so good. Adrian is such a good salesperson, man. Like, if you got a business and you want an ad read on this ad, you can request Adrian to it. Adrian, we're like 28 minutes in by my count. Do you want to do a quick Kumbia break and we'll come back and break down this roster?
Hit it.
All right, guys, welcome back from the Kumbia break, and we're here to break down the brand new look UTSA roster. Only one returner from last year's roster remaining. Shout out to Nazir Muhammad.
That's correct. Yes.
Yeah.
Nazar, I believe. Nazar Mahmoud is the lone returner for UTSA, and there's only one true freshman on the squad in Babakar Nige, who looks like to be the younger brother of Mo Nije.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think the younger one's a walk on too, right?
Yeah. So besides Nazar and Babakar, every single other player on this roster is a transfer.
Several of them are on their fourth school. Several.
Some journeymen.
It's wild, man.
A roster of some journeymen, yeah.
Yep. Austin Claunch might have gotten a bunch of hired guns for this year. It makes sense. I mean, you got to bring back some level of respectability for this program. Like, I feel like you got to find the athletes that will guarantee that you're not going to lose to Division II teams anymore. That you're not going to lose to teams that have a third of your budget anymore. So it's the right call, right? I mean, I think ideally you find a little bit better balance of, younger guys and high school guys that you think can have at least a small impact off the bench this year and balance it out a little bit better. But I really have no problem with what Claunch did. Now, if they're a 5-win team with this approach, that would be a real bummer. Because if you're going to bottom out, you might as well bottom out with guys that are probably going to be here next year. But I get it. I don't necessarily have a problem with it. And, most of these guys that we're going to talk about are pretty legit talents. I mean, I think they've got some really stellar guys here. And, to kick us off, the guy that's probably going to be the leading scorer this year, if I had to guess, Primo Spears. transfer from Florida State. He's got over 1,100 points in his NCAA career, and he's gonna be one of the better players to come through this program.
Yeah, he was the leading scorer in the game against USC with 14 points, 5 for 16 from the field, 2 for 5 from behind the arc. Primo Spears, man, Florida State, you got to like him coming from a larger program like that, big school. And he wasn't a scrub at Florida State either. I mean, he averaged nearly 11 points per game with 2 assists, got a rebound and a steal in every game as well. And he played in 24 games for the Seminoles last season. So it's not like he just saw action in a couple of minutes here and there. No, I mean,
he dropped 17 points against North Carolina in the ACC championship game.
Salty, man.
And it's kind of crazy they're able to get that kind of guy to come to UTSA.
That is kind of crazy.
He's from Connecticut. Yeah, it is kind of crazy.
Yeah. So I think Primo Spears and they actually have him on his bio listed as a combo guard, right? And so like point guard, shooting guard, is he bringing the ball up court and then moving around? I'm kind of interested to see like how exactly that's going to play out with the where he actually ends up being one or two.
One of the main concerns I have, I think, with this roster is I think there's probably like 4 guys that you could say that about. And it's like, how are they all going to gel and mesh together? Find that right balance of, creating your own opportunity off the dribble versus being a distributor. A lot of guys struggle with that at the collegiate level and at the professional level. It's a hard thing to do. I think like 2 guys like that, like we've seen it firsthand. It doesn't always work out. But to have 3 or 4 guys that I think you could say that about could be a challenge this year for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. But Primo Spears, definitely the best resume of everyone on the roster, probably the best raw talent, and just a ton of experience. You need a guy to be your floor general and be your leader.
Raw talent. Yeah, I say he's just a talent. Just a talent. He already has skins on the wall. In one of the best conferences in the country. So I think it's just crazy that he's here, and I think he should be heavily expected to be one of the leaders for this team, and have a great season. And he's got one more year left, right? Whether he wants to stay here or move somewhere else, that's cool. We know what we're getting ourselves into. But high expectations for sure.
Yeah, I mean, prior to Florida State, he was at Georgetown. He was a Hoya. It was a very, very celebrated basketball program. So yeah, Primo Spears, man, here to be the floor general, the leader, and the top scorer. I mean, yeah, he's gonna be our guy. So Primo Spears, very, very excited to see the sort of leadership that he's going to have over this team and be successful at it. Next on the list, we've got Marcus Melinder, aka Smurf. 5'11", 180-pound sophomore from H-Town, Clearbrook High School, but was actually at South Alabama prior to getting to UTSA, the Jaguars.
Yeah. Alongside Primo, Marcus was one of the guys that did media interviews for the team today with Coach Claunch, and I just could not believe that he was only a sophomore. I mean, Smurf is very mature for his age. He seemed very, what's the word? He has that intangible leadership aspect, right? Like all of his answers were very team focused, trying to put his teammates in the best position. So, like we were just saying, Primo is like kind of that combo guard that, he'll play the 1 and the 2. I think Marcus is point guard all the way.
True point
he's
guard,
really good at really good at distributing the ball, running the point, running the offense, and stuff like that. So, based off what we've seen from him on the court at South Alabama, as well as like his kind of off the court demeanor, I think it's safe to say he's going to start at the point for UTSA all season, just like he did in the USC scrimmage. And I don't think he'll have the eye-popping stats that you're going to see from some of the other guards, but I think he's going to bring kind of that. Kind of like Giovanni De Nicolai was, like he'll make some explosive plays, some exciting plays, but his ability to just execute the offense and like keep the ball flowing and find the open shot is huge.
He might be the best all-around player at UTSA No, he was number 32 in Texas coming out of high school from 24/7. He was ranked 54th nationally amongst the point guards. He set South Alabama's second, not set the record. He was the second most freshman assists all time, 107 assists last season, but he really cut his teeth in high school, known as a hell of a defender, hard-nosed defender. So the guy can pass the ball extremely well, get you those dimes, bring the ball up the court for you, extremely good on defense. Yeah, I think I think Smurf is going to be a very, very well-rounded talent, and he's young. If Austin Claunch can get him to buy in to what he's selling here for the Roadrunners, hopefully it's a guy that you can hold on to and retain a little bit of experience with and leadership going into the Nike era of UTSA. Yeah.
So next guy, he started at 3 against USC, a guy that I think is going to be a fan favorite just based off my limited exposure to him and what James Madison fans have said about him. Raekwon Horton, JMU transfer, played in an NCAA tournament last year. He had some really, really big shots for the Dukes last year. He's a senior for UTSA. I'm not sure if he'll have another year of eligibility or not, but he's got the clutch gene in him for sure. He actually knocked down an overtime game-winning shot against number 4 Michigan on the road last year.
Nasty. Got the clutch gene.
Yep.
Got the clutch gene. Yeah.
And he seems like another guy that's going to be a team leader. Again, very mature, very responsible, and I think he's really dynamic with the ball in his hands. When he crashes down off the wing and is going to attack the rim, he comes in with a real passion and ferocity to his game. And he did miss some of those attempts against USC, but you can tell that he had the right intention, he had the right aggression to it. USC is just kind of higher level of talent than what you're going to see most nights for the Roadrunners. So I think he's going to get some easy buckets for the Roadrunners. I like his athleticism, and I could really tell watching that USC game that he plays really hard on defense. So that's a couple of guys we've said that about now, which is encouraging.
Yeah, and that's something that we need to see is that defensive effort, the defensive hustle is not something that we saw a lot from, the latter years of Steve Henson's Roadrunners. A lot of guys would sort of lay down on defense. And so that's going to be a very refreshing change of pace for fans to see in the convo. And you were talking earlier about the team looking the same as last year offensively, but I think defensive side is where you're going to see a different sort of team. Jared, Raekwon Horton, 54% shooting at JMU, 54% from the field. Nasty. Really, really nasty stuff. And you talk about the clutch gene that he's got. Yeah, I think you can see some real big-time moments whenever the game's on the line. I think you want the ball to be in Horton's hands.
Man, the next guy on the list, starting center for UTSA, and to say starting center is a new experience for us. Off the top of your head, man, who is the last true center that UTSA has had?
Oh, man, bro. I think it's back from whenever I was in school.
Yeah, dude. I'm thinking of Kaj Bjorn.
Kaj Bjorn. That's who I was like, man, what's that big old dude's name?
Yeah. His dad used to post on Rowdyville, bro. That's how far back we're taking this thing. It might have been Rowdy Talk. I don't know, but
he was massive.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
That dude was massive. Yeah, and Mo Nije, 6'11", 250 pounds, 6'11", Jared. The dude is a tower. Absolutely massive. Yeah, you talk about a true starting center. Make no doubt, make no mistakes about it.
Yeah, he's physically imposing, right? He's going to be the first real rim protector that UTSA has had. I don't know, because I don't even know if I would say Kaj was a rim protector. I don't know if he was athletic enough. I don't know. I'm really racking my brain trying to think of someone that would be imposing enough that guards didn't want to go in to attempt a layup against him. We just haven't really had that at all. And what surprised me about Mo is he's physically imposing and he's going to be that presence down low on defense, but he's got some offensive game to him as well. I really liked against USC the way he was able to establish himself on the low block and, kind of create some space for him down there. And that's against, I was going to say Pac-12. That's against a Big Ten, level of talent as well, that he was able to, block himself out down there and, create some space for that kind of like that overhead entry pass that comes down to the paint. So it's exciting, man. He's got some decent touch. He's not just going to be a big body out there. So that was cool to see. It was cool to see a real effort to work him into the offense and, running design plays that intend to get him the ball down low. And again, that's just something that is a basic fundamental of basketball, but we have not seen it at UTSA in like a generation of Phantom.
Yeah. So Mo comes to UTSA from SMU. Originally started his collegiate playing career at Eastern Michigan before coming down to SMU, where he played a lot of games.
Yeah, and SMU must have gotten some dogs in the portal if they ran this guy off. I mean, he seems like at worst the guy you would love to have come off your bench and give up 3 or 4 hard fouls when you need some defense.
100%, yeah, 100%. And another senior, a lot of minutes underneath this guy, and so you have to like that part about it too. Like you're saying, Jared, you've got to have the experience on this team so you can beat the teams that you're supposed to beat at least.
Yep. Overwhelm the teams that you're supposed to beat is the way that I would want to look at it, because if you go back and you watch like some of those late Henson teams against Our Lady of the Lake and St. Edwards and stuff like that, like it doesn't look like they're a different class of athlete. You know what I mean? And I don't think that'll be the case this year. I think you'll see a really obvious difference on the court.
So a massively important part of the up-tempo ball and the way basketball is working in 2024 is the stretch 4 position. And I think the next guy who we have as a projected starter is exactly that to a T, Jared. That's Jonevius Smith. Stretch 4. This is a power forward, but really a stretch 4 through and through.
Yeah, so I don't know a whole lot about Smith. I didn't research him as closely as I did some of the other starters because I wasn't sure that he's going to maintain a starting spot all season. We'll get to the guy that I think might earn that spot, later on. But just like some of the other guys we mentioned, Jonevius has a lot of experience. He started 36 games for the last 2 seasons at Buffalo, right? So pretty solid program in the MAC, up there in Buffalo. So, he has the ability to stretch the court, get on the perimeter, just like Adrian was saying. Just the ability to have a big man that'll pull the defense out a little bit and create some spacing is huge.
Yeah, 3 stars coming out of high school in Alabama and a lot of minutes over there in Buffalo. So, yeah, I think he'll definitely be the guy that gets us started off. And so whenever we look at that, that's kind of who we're projecting our starting 5 to look like, at least at the beginning of the season under Claunch. That's Primo Spears, Marcus, a.k.a. Smurf Melinder, Raekwon Horton, Mo Nije, and Jonevius Smith.
All right, well, to take a little look at the bench, one guy that had a real splash showing against USC, Damari Monsanto. So this guy's a Wake Forest transfer, and kind of an interesting story for him. He was Wake's second leading scorer for the 2022-2023 season, but he got hurt really early in the 2023-2024 season. So, if what we saw in the USC game, it was really encouraging. And if he's able to play at that level, UTSA may have gotten a real steal here, getting a guy that just needed a year of rehab to get back to his old ways. So, seems like he's healthy. He's good to go. He came off the bench against USC, hit several 3-point shots. And he's just a really smooth jump shooter, right? He has that like really natural, gift where he goes up and he lets it rip and it just looks so natural. Like it's so easy for him, right? Some guys, it looks kind of clunky and, it may go in at a pretty good clip. But Damari's got that God-given ability to look really good while doing it.
You know what I love, Jared, is that Damari is a graduate student, grad transfer, graduate student. This guy just wants to play ball, man. He just wants to keep playing ball. Came to UTSA to come play ball. Feels like he still has it. A ton of output in his time at Wake Forest, and tended to.
He has the 6th highest total for 3-point field goals made in Wake Forest history.
It's insane.
Yeah.
That is absolutely insane. And he tend to have really, really good games, particularly whenever they got into conference play, whenever they were playing some larger programs. But hit Notre Dame for 28 points, dropped 25 points against Virginia Tech, and they were ranked 10th. He is a 40% shooter from the 3-point line. Yeah, man, the dude has just got a really smooth jump shot. And if he's healthy, absolutely, man. The dude could be a total force here. And there might not be too many schools that can like really hang with him, or at least out on the bottom half of American Conference.
Yeah, hopefully he's one of those guys that, he checks into the game and the defense has to make an adjustment to make sure they're not leaving him open and
exactly
just cause the defense to be a little bit more aware of where he's at on the court and, hopefully open up some more spacing for the other guys as well. Okay, next up, this is the guy that I was hinting at that I think probably ends up in the starting 5 at some point. Tyrion Joseph, 4-star transfer from Southern. This kid's electric, man. Averaged 21 points per game at Southern. Bit of a volume shooter, I will admit. He's gonna have to rein that in a little bit at UTSA, I think. But nonetheless, his ability to create instant offense is, really unparalleled, right? Just a really explosive player. Even when Southern did play, some bigger schools, he did very well there. 6'3" guard, so he's a great athlete. He can attack the rim too. I've heard he's one of the best dunkers on the team, which is surprising. But earlier we were talking about, can some of these guys kind of buy into the role in the offense and, feel comfortable catching and shooting the three versus, having to dribble for 10 seconds to get your shot, right? And I think that's the challenge for Joseph. I mean, I think his ceiling, I mean, he could probably hang with any roster in this conference as far as his talent goes, but if his only way to play at that level is to have the ball in his hands at all times and be a one-man show, then defenses at this level are going to be able to stifle that a bit. But if he's able to play as an extension of the offense and not as the offense, he's going to be a great player for UTSA.
Yeah.
It sounds like he's aware of that fact. Claunch said his assist to shot ratio has improved throughout his time at UTSA.
Okay.
So that's good. I think it's a good little metric to track.
Yeah, definitely so. A little bit of maturation here in a short time span. Play with the team a little bit better. And also Tyrion goes by Scooter.
Scooter.
With an AH at the end.
I like that UTSA is giving us the nicknames in the player bios. Can you imagine if football had like all of Coach Traylor's nicknames for everybody, like Big Country or whatever? Oh man, it'd be a hoot.
It would be a hoot.
Yeah, I mean, just as far as athleticism goes, I think Joseph's going to be one of the most purely talented players to walk through the home locker room doors in the Convocation Center.
Wow.
But it's just about him finding his fit in the offense.
Wow.
I mean, 21 points per game at this level is crazy.
It is salty, yeah. And he had over 20 points per game, like on 16 different occasions or 18 different occasions at Southern. Like he was a perennial 20 plus points. Like you could just put it in the bag. He was going to get 21.
I'm not going to pretend to know, the minute details of a SWAC roster, but I cannot imagine the other 4 guys around him were much of a threat for defenses. So that he was getting all kinds of traps thrown at him, double teams thrown at him, extra defenders, flashing at him and stuff like that. So yeah, it's really impressive stuff to put up those kind of points. And, it's not as efficient as you'd want to see, but he's a hooper.
Absolutely. Next, another stretch 4, I think, in Jaquan Scott, Mississippi State transfer, 6'8", 230 pounds, originally from Dallas, Texas.
Yeah, didn't really play much at all at Mississippi State. I mean, super limited minutes. Don't have much to go on. I've read that he's more comfortable around the rim. I don't think he's a guy, that's going to be so much of the stretch forward, but probably the more traditional power forward of running the pick and roll and trying to finish around the rim.
Mm.
So we'll see. I think he did play. Yeah, he played about 14 minutes in the USC scrimmage and fouled out, which is great. Honestly, I love to see guys foul out. You got 5 fouls, you better use them, baby.
Using
But
baby.
he did have, he did have 2 field goals. So
Yeah, it looks like he's pretty comfortable throwing up the ball. To be decent scoring. So Jaquan Scott, and then last we have on our projected bench is Skylar Wicks,
yeah,
who actually comes to UTSA from Incarnate Word.
yeah, might have been the best Division I player in San Antonio last year.
Wow. Yeah, might be right.
Averaged 13.7 points per
6'6".
game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
UIW played UTSA last year, and Skylar Wicks was playing for a job, brother. That guy dropped 24 points, 11 boards, 5 assists, and 4 steals. He said, "Get me over here to UTSA, brother. I heard
Give
y'all
me
got
that
NIL
blue.
around here."
Give me that blue and orange, man. I need it. Yeah, and he was the top scorer and assist leader for UIW last season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I went back and watched a condensed version of UIW's game against Rice last year to see how. I think it goes by Sky, just to see how he competed against an AAC opponent because I knew that he had destroyed UTSA, but UTSA was bad because Rice is bad too. Probably not a great comparison. But I was like a little hesitant with what I saw. Like it obviously was not one of his best games. If you look at his scoring average, but just a lot of plays where it didn't really feel like he was making a big impact on either side of the court. Just some rough shots. Seemed a little bit out of control. Turned the ball over a couple times. So, we'll see. I mean, obviously, when he's on, he's on. He can be a big time player but I think he'll probably come off the bench for UTSA this year. And I think given what he did at UIW, you're going to take that production, come off your bench anytime. But a little bit on the lighter side, I think he'll struggle to kind of hang down low against some of the bigger guys in this conference and some of the increased size you're going to see in the AAC compared to I guess UAW's in the WAC last year for basketball, I think. But yeah, to have a guy like this on the bench with his veteran experience is a plus.
Well, Jared, he is touted as an elite rebounder. He did have 4 rebounds against USC, which would have been the 3rd most on the team for the day. And he did it on both sides, 2 on defense and 2 on offense. And so, the guy might have elite box out technique, might have a whole lot of bounce to be able to jump up and go grab it, but it looks like he's pretty decent on the boards, Jared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I did notice that in the Rice game. It wasn't so much that he was throwing like these killer block outs and skying up above the rim to go grab the board, but it was just more the awareness of like seeing like the angle of the shot and where that bounce is going to come. Right, he just seemed like very intent on grabbing a rebound, which, as we know, is a huge part of being a good rebounder, is just wanting to get it and really making that concerted effort. So that was good to see. So I think those are the guys that are going to have a big impact. I mean, I think Paul Lewis you might see a little bit of, but I think the guys that we covered are the ones that are going to have the majority of the minutes for this team.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. I think that's a pretty spot on starting 5 and bench role. The other guys on the roster, I think you're going to see develop a little bit more before they actually get involved.
So. We didn't mention this earlier, but the reason why we said that we think Tyrone Joseph is going to play his way into the starting 5 is just because he's been hurt. I think if he was healthy, for that USC game, I think he probably would have been in the starting 5 somewhere. I think when he comes back, I don't think that you can pull Smurf or Primo off the starting 5. So I think you're going to play with 3 guards and you're going to move Rickwan Horton probably to the power forward. So they'll just play small with a 6'6" power forward, but you'll have Mo out there as a center to give you that length and ability to protect to the rim.
There's a good bit of talent here. The only other person I think maybe could get a couple of minutes if we're doing well is going to be Zach Gonsolin. He's a guard. He didn't really get any time at TCU while he was there, but he was at IMG Academy, where he hails from. So you got to figure he's got to have some pretty sound foundation, man. And 45% from the field, 50% from three in his time at IMG. Yeah, man, he's from Houston. And he played at Ridge Point in Mo City, so that dude is cut. All right, let's not get it twisted, man. Yeah, this is my sleeper pick for absolute beast. Is going to be Zach Gonson.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I like it. Well, cool. We'll see how this team does. I mean, I think like there's the pieces here for this to be a respectable team, right? I don't think anyone should talk themselves into them competing in the AAC at a high clip right off the bat. But I do think that they have the pieces where they could surprise people and be a really fun team to watch, which I think at this point is something that we'll all settle for as Roadrunner fans.
I mean, dude, if we're just talking about like the sheer talent potential or capabilities of this roster versus last year's or the year prior, it feels on paper like a complete night and day difference. I don't recall us touting off this many like good stats or accolades for guys whenever we were doing last year's roster preview for basketball. It seems like there's a lot more here, Jared. It seems like there's a lot more here.
Yeah, and I don't want to call out guys from last year's roster by name because they were in a bad situation and they represented the school well and all that. But I mean, you just look at like the athleticism and the resume of some of the guys that left compared to some of the guys that have come in, and it's a massive increase. But basketball,
absolutely,
chemistry is really important. Experience is really important. All that kind of stuff. And UTSA they're not going to have that. Like these guys are all new. They're all going to have to learn to play together for the first time. And there's no continuity, right? So even if every single guy in this roster is, 20% better than the guy they replaced that scholarship spot with, like the sum of the parts may not, add up to what it could. You know what I mean? So like while individually, I think that there are a lot of good players here, we also have to keep our expectations in check because you can't just go grab, random players from across America that are good and dump them on a team and, say good luck, and you're going to go expect to dominate, right? It just doesn't work that way. So we'll see how it pans out, but I think we'll have some players that'll be fun to watch. And I'm just hoping that in 2 months, I will be looking forward to tuning into these games and wanting to do more podcasts with you. Because I know in the last couple of years we had no motivation to do a basketball podcast. We had zero requests come in. Hey, why aren't you guys covering basketball? When are you guys gonna do a basketball podcast? No one ever reached out to ask for that content. So I hope that changes this year.
Yeah, definitely so. I mean, so if that's the case, then Jared, I mean, you kind of gave us a little bit of intangible examples, but like, how would you quantify a successful 2024 UTSA men's basketball season?
If they hit 500, that'd be splendid, but I don't want to set that as the goal. I would say instead, I want to see them compete into the last 3 minutes of a game pretty much all the time, right? And you're obviously not going to win all of those, right? You may not win half of those, but I think just to show that minute by minute competitiveness and playing until the end of the game, when it starts to get really tight and the fouls getting called and all that, that would be great to see. Just because it'll keep the fan interest there, it'll prove that they're playing hard. So that would be great to see. I want to see them pull one upset. It doesn't have to be a power program. But to beat Memphis this year, to beat UAB this year, if they could pull one upset like that, that would be super encouraging. Just to show Coach Claunch's on court coaching ability. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Additionally, they should not lose to a school that people have never heard of before. I want that. I want those days to be past us, and I think the talent on this roster should help make sure that doesn't happen. I don't want to lose to Trinity.
You don't want to lose to the Little Rock Trojans.
Little Rock, Houston Christian. I don't know why we're playing North Dakota twice, but Southwestern Adventist. No,
Jacksonville State.
Those days are past, dude. Those days are past.
Yeah.
Jacksonville State at least is in Conference USA, but still, let's raise expectations.
You got to be winning that game. You've got to be winning those.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I
and
mean
a
that's what it boils down to. Don't embarrass us. That's all I'm asking.
pretty low bar for Jared. I tend to agree with you. Look, last year's team won 11 games. I don't think that 15, 16 wins, a 500 record is like super, super far fetched. This team can start to gel together. And we
No,
saw last year's team.
they buy wins with his roster, and that's what frustrated me so much with Henson is he was losing the buy games.
Yeah, this is true. This is true. And, but, but we did see that team like get better as the season went on because like when the beginning of conference play started, this team was routinely losing by 10 plus points, by double digit scoring differences whenever we first got into AAC play last season. Like there were these 17 and 15 and 20-point losses like all the time. But then by the end, was it we got into like March? All of a sudden we were losing those same games by like 4 points and 3 points and 2 points and 7 points. It's like the window kept closing in. We stole one against SMU, I think, there at the end of the season. Almost got a shocker in the tournament opener. I think we lost that game like 3 points or whatever against Temple. So like you saw it get better, right? So those real big differences of like the 17 and 20-point losses, those double digit losses, you don't want those to be as egregious. You don't want to see as many of those, especially at the front half of the season. You want to see this team be competitive at the beginning of conference play, sort of go in there being able to handle themselves and hold their own. But I think 500 is not an extremely tall order for this team. It's a couple of games better than last year's win column, and this
Yeah,
team should be able to do
and
that.
that's really a reflection on the schedule. I think if they played the
True.
schedule that some other AAC teams play, I think 500 would be massive. Is it fair to say though that like we want to see a moderate increase in the win loss record, but a major increase in the point differential delta?
Yeah, yeah.
That's probably a good way to put
Absolutely
it, right?
so. Absolutely
Yeah.
so. Definitely.
And that's how low the bar is. If you're losing by 8 instead of 22, hey, that's progress, you know? And I think
Huge progress.
Claunch has got a really good recruiting class that he's working on right now. And I think if you can show proof of concept, bring back some of these guys that do have some remaining eligibility, you can see the path to being a solid program again.
Let's go, man. Let's
Well,
go.
speaking of being a solid program, I do want to spend a little bit of time talking about the women's team, right? Picked to finish 5th in the conference. Thought they might be a little bit higher, but 5th is fair.
Yeah,
Keep in mind the depths of which this program has come from. Before Karen Aston was here,
true.
we've come a long way, right? And we got to win it. We got to prove it. I think before you earn the respect of I don't know if that was a coach's poll or a media's poll, but regardless. But I think the women are really set up to be a strong team this year. They bring back the majority of last year's roster. Really 3 key losses for them. Kyra White was out of eligibility. So to lose her kind of floor leadership, I think it is really huge. Good score for this team, and just I thought brought a lot of intangibles for sure.
Yes.
Haley Atwood, really lethal shooter for UTSA, hit a lot of big time shots and big time moments. So that's a big loss for sure. And then of course Alyssa Coleman, probably one of the more well-rounded bigs I've seen from UTSA women's basketball in my time, following the program. Unfortunately she had to medically retire after, many repeated injuries. But she's still with the program as the director of operations, which is really cool.
Those are some tough losses. When you look at how much Alyssa Coleman and Kyra White brought to the table, just them two,
Mm-hmm.
it is just a tremendous piece of this sort of team turning around and being competitive. So those are big losses there, Jared, but you still retain a lot of really, really good talent, namely Jordan Jenkins, right? And Sydney Love. I think when you look at Jordan Jenkins and you look at Sydney Love, these two girls right here are the best at their positions in the American Athletic Conference. They're up there with the very, very top at their positions at the guard and forward position. And they can bring it. They can bring it on any given night against any team.
Yep.
But you're right. You're right. Like we've been scratching
Mm-hmm.
at that door, Jared, for I think really three seasons now under Karen. And we haven't pushed it open quite yet. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's what has to happen this year. That's what has
Mm-hmm.
to happen for the women's team.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I'm not going to say that I'm going to be disappointed if they don't make that big breakthrough this year, because this program was so bad for so long that just being a above 500 team that makes the conference tournament consistently for several years, it will not be something that I will be upset or disappointed by, right? Because I mean, the same limitations that we discussed for the men's team are true for the women's team as well, right? Um, so until they have a practice facility, get some convo upgrades, all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff, increase the NIL money, right? Like, it's not fair to expect this team to be a top 25 program and go to March Madness on a consistent basis or anything like that. So you know I think it's time. I think it's possible to see it. I really want to see it in Jordan's last year, but I also don't want to say that that is what the team has to do to be considered successful in the eyes of the fans.
Yeah, that's fair. I think, it's just it's hard because last year I think we expected such a better tournament run, and we had a
Yeah.
heartbreaker against ECU, 1 point, a game that we should have
Mm-hmm.
won, a team that we were better than.
Yeah.
Uh, we just didn't have it that night. And even the night before against USF, we probably should have beat them a little bit more convincingly than we did, but we barely sort of snuck out of that game. So we really just didn't have it in that conference tournament last year, and I think that's sort of like where the big letdown was. But if you look at like the body of work that the 2024 season was for women's basketball, it's unbelievable. I mean, it's really, really
Mm-hmm.
spectacular stuff. Um, I think that we should be able to at least match the output that we had last year. But yeah, I think even taking it a step further would be impressive. But you lose some enormous pieces in Alyssa Coleman and Kyra White.
Yeah, a few newcomers that I think are going to step into roles this year, given those departures, is they picked up a transfer from Mississippi State. I'm going to try my best on the name. Nyadjana Goni. We're just going to call her Goni. That's a tough one. I'm very sorry. But she's very athletic, right? I think that she's going to have a real impact with her ability to kind of bring that Alyssa Coleman kind of presence down low, where she's just a little bit more physical, a little bit bigger than a lot of the girls that she's going to go against. So I think that she's going to do a good job kind of replacing the physical aspect down at the post for UTSA. A freshman that I've heard a lot of good things about is Taylor Ross, local kid. And Coach Allison's done a great job recruiting San Antonio, which is great.
Yeah.
Not a lot of sports you can say that for right now for UTSA, unfortunately. She's a really, really tough kid. Dude, that's not a shot. That's just the truth.
It is a truth. It is a truth. It needs to be said,
Yeah.
dude. It needs to be said.
Yeah.
There's a whole lot of talk about. That's for the football podcast. And I
It's not just
agree.
football, though. It's not just football.
No,
Yeah.
it's not. It's not just football. It's not just football. Goni actually played at the U coming out of high school. She was the top recruit in the state of Nebraska coming out of Lincoln, Nebraska. 4 stars. And freshman at Miami plays in all 22 games as a freshman, and then redshirts her sophomore year before going over to Mississippi State. So like really, really insane amount of talent here in Goni, and she should be able to just be a beast and pick right up.
Her background is so similar to Alyssa's, right? Where she was one of the top recruits, in the whole country.
Yes.
Had that major power experience, but didn't play a whole lot. So to get her in the right scenario to excel, I think it's doable to expect her to fill that Alyssa Cole pretty easily. Yeah,
here's a really cool.
Taylor Ross, man, just a hard-nosed defensive player, man. I think as a freshman, she's gonna be a menace out there, create a lot of turnovers. Probably block some shots. So I'm excited to see her compete for sure, the forward position.
Yeah, and I love that we've got a true freshman from San Antonio here to sort of take the team forward in the next years. The accolade that I like the most from Goni was last year at Mississippi State. She was named the 2023-2024 dog of the offseason. And that accolade is given to the hardest worker on the court and in the weight room.
Love
And
it.
so, yeah, dude, pushing it, heavy hustle from Goni. So yeah, dude, dog
Awesome.
of the
Awesome.
offseason. Yeah, so bring it on.
One last player I'll call out as a newcomer. I wouldn't say to expect her to step in right away and be in a starting five or first off the bench or anything like that. Mia Hammond is the future of this program, and she may not be the future this year, but trust me, that is a name that Roadrunner fans are going to know really quickly. She was a 4-year letter winner at Cibolo Steel, made
Let's
a
go.
lot of playoff runs there, and she's just an absolute competitor, right? Like, I don't think there's anything that's going to stop her from really becoming, like, I would say a household name, I guess, but one of the leaders of this team, right? I think it's just a matter of time and how quickly she can develop, adjust to the collegiate game. Man, her and Sydney Love next to each other is going to be a lot of fun to watch. The local youth talent for this roster is very, very, very exciting.
And another local, right? And another SA person coming in as a freshman. I love to see it, man. And so if you got two SA girls coming in as true freshmen to lead this thing into the Nike era. Yeah,
Yep.
man. Really, really exciting stuff. Mia Hammonds.
Yeah. Well, cool, Adrian. It's been a lot of fun talking hoops with you. It's been a long time. Hopefully, we got people excited for basketball this year. We'll see.
Should be
I
excited
think
for basketball this year.
Yeah, I think there's definitely excitement for the women's team. It's very justified, no doubt about that. I think the men are going to have to play their way into it a little bit, unfortunately. I don't think they're going to be packing the convo right away. But you look at their schedule, it's really easy to see them to go on a really strong run to start the year. And, I think it's going to start with the students, right? If they can get a nice record going, they can get the students involved, get a good student section going, which I'll say last year, the student section wasn't bad either, even with them losing so many games. So, I think if they can get the students involved and they get a raucous atmosphere going, I think the alumni and the locals will come along as well. And it's not going to take a whole lot to get that convo hopping again and probably create a better, in-game atmosphere than, hell, I'm willing to say it's not going to take a lot for them to build a better experience in the combo than I've ever seen as a fan of UTSA.
Well, the combo doors open up this Friday, Jared, November 1st for the women's exhibition game. You're like, well, where's the box score stats? Y'all aren't giving us any stats. They haven't played their exhibition game yet. They will play St. Mary's this Friday in the historic combo at 6:30 tip. So get out there, get rowdy. Let's see that student section come back into full force. Let's see the convo get warmed back up, baby. And give St. Mary's hell. Let's see this women's team come out with a big bang.
Yeah, totally. Well, cool. Thank you guys for listening. And if you're not a patron and you're like, oh, I wish I could have heard this earlier, be sure to go hit subscribe. It's as little as $5 a month. Get you all the bonus episodes. Get you in the Patreon community. We started a separate Patreon chat on the Patreon app for basketball this year. So we'll see. We'll see what the appetite is like from the fan base. It'll dictate how much coverage we bring. So if you want to hear more, get in there, participate, let us know. So cool. Well, thank you guys. And, here's to a good season. Here's to being a Nike school. And we'll see you guys back real soon for a Memphis football recap. I think will probably be our next episode.